Let's see. What shall we talk about? I've got it. Every now and then one might wonder, is there a practice, one that is really important, one to focus on within the whole nagualistic knowledge, which seems to be so vast? In reality, there are 4 or 5 things, more or less always the same, but there is definitely a practice. I don't know if I would call it exactly a practice. Let's call it a skill to be developed. It's called stopping and changing direction. It took me some time to fully comprehend how indispensable this skill is. My teachers, of course, had repeated it to me over and over again. They never missed an opportunity to confront me with the need to develop this skill. And in fact, well, they said that until we develop it, we are like chickens locked in a coop, scratching around and kicking up their own droppings, and that it is the key that opens the door of the coop, so that the chickens can finally go out into the field and discover new things. Then we're still chickens. We don't become eagles, but at least we're out. To start flying, we have to actually carry out this stopping and changing direction. In fact, without this skill, I would say that we never take a real step forward, because we just repeat ourselves. In a video, in an interview, I think I read a passage from Tales of Power, trying to draw attention to those 4 fundamental things, 4 or 5, including, of course, getting rid of the feeling of self-importance, losing personal history, losing habits. In short, this whole part is so underestimated, or rather generally valued in a very theoretical way, but little in practice. And without it, frankly, we never take a step forward, because we continue to revolve around, for example, our habits. Before this video, I posted an excerpt from the online course that talks about the intent of reiteration, because I will also refer to that here. Because this thing of stopping and changing direction has to do with the intent of reiteration and with the suggester. So, if we don't learn this ability, this skill of stopping and changing direction, we won't lose our habits. I want to make this very clear by linking it to the question of those who fly, the voladores, the suggesters. You know, you want to get rid of them, right? I think so. So to get rid of them, you have to learn to stop and change direction. You see, they do one thing. When our intensity is, in their judgment, sufficient to be harvested, sufficient for us to be mowed down again, pruned, I don't know what term to use. Well, they make a small energy investment. They give us a little nudge. Let's say they move our assemblage point in a very precise direction to take us to a certain place. There, in our outbursts, we will release what interests them. And so they make this small energy investment and start the movement of the assemblage point, which they control then through, let's say, some kind of small adjustment strokes. In short, they guide us like oxen tied to a cart, with blinders and everything. And this small initial investment then comes back to them with enormously multiplied interest. One of the greatest cosmic investments I know of, in fact. With this small initial energy investment, they get much more thanks to our complacency. Warriors, at least in my lineage, have learned to use this little initial push to their advantage. They said to themselves, Since someone is starting the movement of the assemblage point with their energy, I'll let them do it, and then I'll take control of the movement, take possession of it, take over the movement that has been started and take it where I want it to go. Once the assemblage point starts moving, it's just a matter of keeping our heightened awareness hooked on the movement, and we'll be the ones leading it where we want it to go. At that point, the suggester can't do anything to stop us from doing it. Usually, the tendency, the idea is to react by fighting against the suggester's impulse. But they anticipate this. They know how to prevent us from resisting the impulse. All they have to do is put something out there that we really like, and we immediately follow it. The idea is immediately instilled that, yes, in this case, I have to follow the impulse because this is something I care about a lot, it's important, and I certainly can't do without it. Warriors apply abstraction at the very moment when the energy that the suggesters put into that push is fully deployed. So they hook into the push, they take possession of this available energy, not in the sense that we include it in our own, but in the sense that we govern it and thus change direction. Stopping means that after this initial push in that direction, the movement of the assemblage point stops and deviates. It goes somewhere else wherever we want it to go. Abstract directions, of course. This is a maneuver that concerns only new seers, and therefore only the abstract. Usually the things that are done are mostly things like using this movement to strengthen the connection with the spirit, for example, or entering the stalker's dream. In short, many things can be done once the assemblage point has been set in motion. The difference is that when it happens normally, we are not aware of it, and so we remain hooked on the effect of the movement, and therefore on the whole set of emotions, thoughts, repetition cycles, habits, etc. Because when the suggester gives this push, when it makes this energy investment, it uses the intent of reiteration that we have built up over time. Our system of habits keeps us there, forces us to repeat ourselves, to always take the direction induced by the suggester. In short, you will have understood that all the fundamental issues are intertwined here. I brought up the suggester, but the suggester can only do what it does because we have a personal history, a system of habits that we continually confirm, in which the intent of reiteration comes into play. And above all, because we are terribly focused on ourselves, and therefore do not see the possibility, the opportunity that is available every time. We don't see the choice. We are focused on ourselves and therefore on our thoughts, on the importance that our whole system of convictions, beliefs and personal religious approach has for us. So just about everything is involved. Stopping and changing direction, once we have learned to do so, throws everything up in the air and gives us the ability to choose, which is what warriors care about most. At that point, real change begins. So basically, if there's one thing I recommend you focus on, it's this: learning to stop and change direction. This requires constant vigilance and, before you do it, a very good understanding of how it works. Thus, having done some kind of expanded gazing at what happens to us when we receive this impulse, this initial push, where we move, how we move, where we end up, what happens, and how that intensity is released, and how it is, let's say, devoured by our friend, companion for life. Clearly, warriors are interested in getting rid of the unwanted guest for good. And so this maneuver, this stopping and changing direction, is always used even afterwards to continue to free themselves from, for example, self-absorption. However, as far as the suggester is concerned, it will be useful until we get rid of the suggester for good. Then we will no longer be interested in using its push, its energy investment, to move the assemblage point. We will move it ourselves in other more interesting ways. The thing that really matters in this maneuver, when we apply stopping and changing direction to the suggester's impulse, is that little by little we insert a sort of energy lever into their understanding, right into the energy structure of those who fly. This energy lever ends up detaching and making available to us something that interests us greatly, which is reason, pure reason, purged of all the nonsense that those who fly add to pure reason to keep us under control. This energy lever, which is stopping and changing direction, essentially disconnects one of their skills, components, abilities, knowledge, which is what warriors call reason, the purified one, the one that works well. We are very interested in taking that away from them. It's a kind of payment for everything they have taken from us throughout our existence. So we unhook that ability and make it our own thanks to this maneuver, this ability that we bring into play. Then, once we've achieved this, we'll be free of the suggester's mind, of the mind of those who fly, and will no longer have anything to do with their initial impulse.